what's happening around the world
and what's happening here at home. A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Rochelle Modera.
and I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
UNP meets Election Commission, emphasizes the need for prompt elections. Ranil Wickramasinghe is an independent candidate, says the UNP. Candidate remains undecided. Mahinda Rajapaksa responds. Opposition to withhold two-thirds majority for proposed constitutional amendment. GL Paris asserts a common consensus. President meets with estate community parties. Plans to provide free houses to Colombo residents. Committee to assess the security of presidential candidates. Proposal to appoint a DIG for specialized security. Investigations to determine if former under-19 cricket captain's murder is linked to gang violence.
Road to Election 2024.
So, Rochelle, it has been almost 24 hours since the Elections Commission was vested with the authority to announce the date for the presidential election. And much has happened since then, don't you think so?
Certainly, Sandro. So, since last night, there were various developments in this regard. Now, let's take a look at what Jaimal has to say about this.
Certainly, Rochelle and Sandru, thank you very much and a very good evening to all our viewers. As Rochelle and Sandru mentioned, it has been approximately 21 hours and 2 minutes to the dot since the National Election Commission was empowered with the authority or vested with the power to announce the presidential election. Leading up to yesterday, there was much speculation on which election will be held in Sri Lanka. According to the constitution, we know a presidential election is scheduled, but there were many opinions and ideas being tossed around regarding a presidential election, a general election, or whether there will be an election at all. And following this development, yesterday the National Election Commission brought some clarity to this matter, where they convened a media briefing, and RMA El Ratnayaka, the commissioner of the National Election Commission, said that the presidential election will be held and that the National Election Commission will announce the date for the presidential election before the end of July, which means before the 31st of July, we will know, Sri Lanka will know when the 2024 presidential election will be held. Now, against this backdrop, many political parties seem to have mobilized their resources in the lead up to the presidential election, and today the General Secretary and the Chairman of the United National Party urged the Election Commission to expedite the election process. Following a discussion with the Commission, they declared that Ranil Wickramasinghe will run as an independent candidate at the upcoming presidential election. Let's take a look.
UNP Chairman Bajira Bewardena and General Secretary Palitha Range Bandara visited the Election Commission for discussion that lasted about an hour.
ඉක්මනින් උරුම කරලා දෙන්න ඕන ඉඳා ඉක්මන් මැතිවරණය පැවැත්වීම හොඳයි. ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහතුමා ඒක එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ දීලා නැත්නම් පොට් වෙනද? ඒක ස්වාධීන අපේක්ෂකෙකු ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්නේ සියලු දෙනාට එකතු වෙන්න බලන්න ඔබටත් එකතු වෙන්න බලන්න දෙන්න. ඒකේ මොන පැත්තෙන්ද? දිනන පැත්තේ. ඒක ඇත්තේ සමග ජනවලගේ ජාතික ධර්මවලගේ. ගෑවිලාවත් නැහැ. විහිළු කරන්න බෑ. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂ ලකුණෙන් එන්නේ නැත්තේ. නේද අවශ්‍ය නැහැ ජාතික අවශ්‍යතාවයක් පැන නැගිලා තියෙන අවස්ථාවක්. මුළු මහත් රටත් ඔබත් මමත් අපි දෙන්නම වැටිච්ච වෙලාවක රටට ජාතික
ව්‍යාපාරයක් අවශ්‍ය වුණා. ඒ නිසා තමයි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ජාතික සභාවක් පිහිටුවේ. ඉතින් ජාතික සභාව තුලින් මතුවන අපේක්ෂකයා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා. බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයාත් සාකච්ඡාවක් කරා. නෑ ඉතින් උදාහරණයකට ගත්තාම ඒ පක්ෂෙත් එක්ක සියලු දෙනා වැඩ කළා මේ විරුද්ධ පක්ෂයත් ඒ අයත් සමග එකතු වෙන්න උත්සාහ කළා. බැරි වුණාම ඉතින් මිදිතිත්තයි කියනවා ගණන් ගන්න එපා. අවුලද කියන්නේ කමිෂන් එක මැදිවරණ කමිෂන් දිනනීම කරවුවාම අපි අපේක්ෂක පිළිබඳ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. නෑ ඒක අපි ප්‍රකාශ කරලා තියෙනවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහතා තමයි අපේක්ෂක.
Meanwhile, Jamuni Kamanta Tushara, president of the Citizens Power Against Bribery, Corruption and Waste, led a protest in front of the Election Commission demanding that the presidential election be held as scheduled. The group questioned the chairman and the secretary of the United National Party about any attempts to delay the vote.
නෙමෙයි ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ තියෙන අඩුපාඩු සකස් කිරීම කරන්නේ නෑ ඔබතුමාලට බංගලොත් වෙල්ලි ඉවරලා ඊට පස්සේ කියන බලන්න ඡන්දේ තියනවද නැද්ද කියලා අපි ඡන්දේ ඡන්දේ තියනවද නැද්ද ඔයාගේ දේශපාලන ක්‍රියාවට උදව් කරන්නේ දේශපාලන ක්‍රියාවේ ඡන්දේ තියනවද නැද්ද කියලා කෙලින් කියලා යන්නකෝ දැන් අපි ඡන්දේ තියනවා කියලා බොරුවට මාධ්‍ය සෝදාන්න එපා පස්සේ කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා ජනාධිපතිවරණේ තියනවද මේ හරියට ජනාධිපති තියෙන ඉඳන් අපි ඇල කොමිසමත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරේ නෑ උපසින්ද මියනකම් උපසින්ද ඒකට කමන්නේ සමාජයට වදයක් වෙන නිසා මියනකට නැයිනේ මේ රටේ බංගලොත් කරේ ඕගොල්ලෝ මේ රට පාලනය කරව අපි නෙමෙයි පුරවැසියන් මැද වෙලා නැත්තේ ඕගොල්ලෝ තමයි මේ රට කෑවේ ඔය කොන්දකෙන් තියා ජනාධිපති වෙන්න තියනවද නැද්ද කියලා කියන්න බැරිද ඕගොල්ලෝ වටේ ගිහිල්ලා ජනමත විචාරණය 30කට යන්නේ නැදන්.
The activists ended their protest by afternoon.
What you witnessed were scenes of members of the United National Party, more particularly the chairman and the general secretary of the United National Party, going to the National Election Commission to request the National Election Commission and its chairman to hold the presidential election expeditiously. Now, amidst the Election Commission being authorized to announce the presidential election, a conversation has emerged about a proposed constitutional amendment. This amendment, approved by the Cabinet, is set to be submitted to Parliament and gazetted in the coming days. The government's objective with this amendment is to resolve the current ambiguities in the Constitution. The Constitution currently stipulates a 5-year term for both the President and the Parliament. However, it also mentions that a referendum is required to extend this term beyond 6 years. The proposed 22nd constitutional amendment aims to clarify this by setting the term length firmly at 5 years. The United National Party consistently asserts that the President's term is 5 years, denying any attempt to extend it. Opposition parties and legal experts argue that a referendum is necessary for this constitutional amendment. They question whether this is a strategy to scuttle or delay the presidential election. What are the different viewpoints on this issue today? Let's take a look.
I am of the opinion that holding a referendum at this juncture, particularly when a presidential election is imminent, could potentially lead to a further crisis situation. Additionally, the provisions outlined in the Constitution regarding referendums should not be invoked at this time. It is essential to recognize that this proposed constitutional amendment cannot be described as one that seeks to alter the fundamental meaning of the entire Constitution. Rather, it aims to rectify one certain section.
ඉදිරිපත් කරන ලබන ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනයක් ලෙස සැලකීමට හැකියාවක් නැති නිසා.
However, some argue that the constitutional amendment does not hinder the presidential election process.
Regarding
the proposed challenge to Article 83B of the Constitution, it is crucial to clarify that this amendment represents a reduction rather than an extension. While some individuals express curiosity about this matter, I believe that the question of a constitutional amendment and a referendum should be considered alongside the two requisite two-thirds majority vote in Parliament. Despite concerns raised during the presidential election period, it is my observation that neither the President, the government nor the opposition perceive any need to contest this modification. Such apprehensions appear unfounded.
මේ ජනාධිපතිවරණයේ පැවැත්වීමේ කාර්යාවලියට කිසිදු බාධාවක් නැහැ.
Parliamentarian Professor G.L. Pires at a media briefing expressed his opinion on the constitutional amendment that the government is preparing to carry out.
අසූතුන ආයන්න වගන්තියේ කිසිසේත් ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ හෝ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ නිල කාලය
Article 83B does not pertain to the term of office for either the President or the Parliament. Its purpose lies elsewhere. Specifically, Article 83B outlines the procedure to follow in the event of an attempt to extend the term of office for either institution. The government's proposed constitutional amendment will undergo a referendum after securing a two-thirds majority in Parliament. Presenting this amendment as an emergency bill is not feasible. Despite 4 cases submitted to the Supreme Court in an effort to delay the presidential election, those attempts have failed. Now the last report is to postpone the election through unconventional means. However, we are committed to withholding a two-thirds majority in Parliament, which would prevent any progress on this front. Our aim is to engage in discussions with all opposition parties and factions to reach a consensus and avoid granting the government the necessary majority.
විපක්ෂයේ සියලුම පක්ෂ හා කණ්ඩායම් සමග සාකච්ඡා කළා සම්මුතියකට එළමෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා රජයට මේ තුනෙන් දෙක ලබා නොදීමට.
The National People's Power has accused the government of employing various tactics to influence the upcoming presidential election due to its inability to secure victory.
Why are they trying to find alternative routes instead of going for a presidential election? Ranil Wickremesinghe knows very well that he cannot win, and his supporters are aware of this too. This indicates that the ruling group, including Ranil Wickremesinghe and Mahinda Rajapaksa, is reluctant to face this election. Despite multiple attempts to prevent it, this election defeats all those prevention efforts. This is significant, yet skepticism remains among the public. Doubts have arisen. We know about the constitutional amendment passed by the cabinet. It does not matter. But because of this, some people believe that they can do something to postpone the presidential election. However, we know very well that according to the constitution and the law, there is no other option but to hold the presidential election. From today, Ranil Wickremesinghe no longer has the responsibility for this. It is now with the Election Commission. The Election Commission is tasked with conducting elections, not postponing them. We are ready for the elections and the Commission must show that it is independent. We believe the date for the election should be announced soon.
ඔප්පු කරමින් ඡන්දෙ තියන්න ඕන. ඡන්දෙ සඳහා දින ප්‍රකාශපත් කරන්න ඕන කියලා අපි හිතනවා. අපි හිතනවා ඒක කරાવી කියලා.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයෙක්. ඔහු ජනාධිපති
Ranil Wickremesinghe is also a presidential candidate. If he tries to influence the election he is contesting, we must question the constitutionality and legality of using his power in this manner. If Ranil Wickremesinghe attempts to influence the upcoming elections after becoming a presidential candidate, the lawyers of the National People's Power are prepared to take action. To be clear, Ranil has failed. We used to say that Gotabaya failed. Now Ranil has failed badly and should go home. He can do that and leave. We will determine the date of the general election.
We saw various views being expressed by members of opposing factions and also legal experts. What is the stance of the government, or much rather the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana? Currently, similar to the United National Party, certain government partners assert that President Ranil Wickremesinghe is running the presidential election as an independent candidate. However, the dominant power within the government remains with the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana. Now, the question arises, does the SLPP endorse Ranil Wickremesinghe's candidacy? Here is what was said in the political arena today.
During a press conference held at the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana party headquarters, State Minister Indika Anuruddha announced that a candidate would be presented from the SLPP.
අපි ජනාධිපතිවරණයට සූදානම් අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදුජන පෙරමුණ කියන දේශපාලන පක්ෂය යටතේ අපේක්ෂකයෙක් ඉදිරිපත්.
We are prepared for the presidential election and are currently working to present a candidate from the SLPP. Numerous individuals are in discussions with us about running in the next election. When the time comes, we will present our candidates and celebrate this momentous occasion in a grand manner. The date is the question. We are in talks with many potential candidates. We will not rush this.
ඒ තෝරා ගැනීම කරන්න අපි ඉක්මන් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
State Finance Minister Shehant Semasinghe, also from the SLPP, expressed the following position.
The entire country hopes for a leader who can ensure a prosperous life, avoid the return of long queues and power outages, and build a nation where people can be happy. President Ranil Wickremesinghe will be running in the upcoming election not as a candidate of any political party, but as the leader who will guide this country forward. He is gathering support from all who wish to see him lead for the next 5 years. It is crucial for political parties to listen to the people's opinions and for President Ranil Wickremesinghe to lead the country in the next 5 years.
Susil Premajanta, who was elected to the parliament from the SLPP, is now with the new alliance.
අපි ස්වාධීන කණ්ඩායමක් හැට තිනවා අපේ රැලියකට සම කරන්න කිසිම රැලියක් තාම තියලා නැහැ. ඉතින් අපි බලමු ඊළඟ සති දෙක තුන වෙනකොට කොහොමද මේක හරියට නිරවුල් වෙලා එන්නේ කියලා. අපි අපේක්ෂකයෙක් නෑ ශ්‍රී ලංකා.
The new alliance led by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party will not present a candidate. Instead, we will support a leader who can move the country forward. It is essential for the people to understand who can rebuild the nation to avoid returning to the difficulties we faced 2 years ago.
දෙවිච්ච තත්ත්වයට යන්න පුළුවන්. නේද ඒක ඉස්සරහදී ඒක බලන්න ඉතින් තව සති දෙක තුනයි නේ තියෙන්නේ.
Former Minister Sam Chandrasena is a senior member of the SLPP.
Although we are an independent group, none have organized a rally to match ours. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will see how things unfold.
ඒක තමයි යථාර්ථය. ඒක අපි තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ. දිනේ තියෙන ජනතාවගේ අදහසත් ඒකයි.
Former President and SLPP leader Mahinda Rajapaksa commented on presidential candidates.
අද ඉඳලා මැතිවරණ කොමිසමට බලයට යරනවා මේ මැතිවරණ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කවුරු අපේක්ෂක?
ඒක විලාවට කියන්නේ. දැනම කියන්නේ
මැතිවරණයට ඔක්කොම නියම කරලා ඉවරයි.
ඕ නෑ නෑ ඉතින් විලාවෙ තියෙනවා තාම වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඉන්නකෝ අපේක්ෂකයා දැම්ම අපිට තේරෙයි කොච්චර බලගතුෙක් කියනද අපි දාන්නේ කියලා.
ඒකට පොහොට්ටුවේ අපේක්ෂකයෙක් දෙන්නේ.
පොහොට්ටුව තමයි ඉතින් පොහොට්ටුවෙන් උදව් කරන්නේ පොහොට්ටුවට.
දැන් පොදු අපේක්ෂකයෙක් ගැන කතා කරනවා මේ අවස්ථාවේ. ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන්.
ඔය ඉතින් පොදු වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්.
පොදු අපේක්ෂකයෙක්ද දාන්නේ?
අනිත් අයගේ සහයෝගය අරගෙන ඉපෑ දාන්න අපි හැමදාම කරේ පොදු අපේක්ෂකයෙක්.
ජනාධිපතිතුමාට සහයෝගය දෙන්න පුතුමාලගේ අදහසක් තියෙනවද?
තාම නැහැ මේක.
ඒක පුතුමාලා පත් කරා පුතුමාලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට 13ක් දීලා.
ඔව් ඉතින් ඒක තමයි. ඒ වෙලාවට බලමු. එයා අපිත් එක්ක ලෑස්ති නම් යන්න අපි සහයෝගය දෙනවා සම්පූර්ණයෙන්.
පුතුමාලා කොන්දේසි මොකක්ද සම්බන්ධ?
මොන්දේසි වලට කියන්න බෑනේ.
ඒ වෙලාවට
Pafral emphasized that the government should create the necessary background for the people to freely elect their own leader.
අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා ඉදිරි දින කිහිපය තුල මැතිවරණ කොමිසම සභාව ජනාධිපතිවරණය ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරන්න ක්‍රියා කරයි.
We believe that within the next few days the election commission will proclaim the date for the presidential election. The uncertainties in the constitution have been clearly clarified by the court. There is no issue regarding the term of the president. It has been confirmed that there is no problem in the constitution. The judicial process has made it clear. The election commission is ready to hold the election. An election must be held according to the constitution. In such a situation, using people's money for a referendum to correct the uncertainties caused by their weakness would be an economic crime. Let the people of this country freely choose their leader.
මේ රටේ ජනතාවට නිදහසේ තමන්ගේ පාලකයා පත් කරගන්න ඉඩ දෙන්න.
21 hours and 18 minutes have lapsed since last night, where the National Election Commission was empowered and vested with the authority to call and announce the date for the 2024 presidential election. Within this time period, much has happened, much has been said, and in the succeeding days, much will be said and many developments will unfold. And as the country's fourth estate, Newsfirst is geared up to keep you updated and abreast with all the developments and unfoldings that come to light with the presidential election coming soon. With that, we now cross over to the main studio.
Thank you, Jaimal. Now, the President convened a meeting with political parties representing the plantation community.
Let's find out what was the purpose of this meeting.
MP Vadivel Suresh and Minister of State for Education Arvind Kumar from the Ceylon Workers Congress, a government partner, participated in a discussion with the President. Leader of the Tamil Progressive Alliance Mano Ganesan and opposition member P. Digambaram also attended. The meeting focused on the cabinet proposal to convert existing estate line rooms into villages.
අපි ආවේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා අපිට දැනුම් දීලා තිබුණා පතු ජනතා ජීවත් වෙන ස්ථාන ටික ගම්මාන ගැටියට පිළිගන්නට ඕන වෙන
to submit another cabinet paper to recognize the areas where plantation workers live as villages. We were asked for our views. We told the President that if the estates remain as they are and simply declared villages, the Tamil Progressive Alliance cannot agree.
ඩික්ලෙයාර් කරනවා නම් ප්‍රකටන කරනවා නම් ඒකට දමිළවර සන්දානයටියට අපිට එකකමට බෑ කියලා ජනාධිපතිවරු කියලා ආවා.
දැන් මේ ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී එතුමාට සහාය දෙන්න කියලා කිව්වේ නැද්ද? ඉල්ලීමක් කරේ නැද්ද?
ඒකට කතා කරේ නෑනේ.
දැන් කාටද සහාය මේ පාර?
අපි ඉන්න තැන දන්නවා නේද? සමග ජන සන්දානෙ ඉන්නවා. ඉන්න තැනින් ඉන්නවා. අපි යාට මෙයාට පණින ගෙම්බෝ නෙවෙයි, පඳුරොත් නෙවෙයි. අපි ඉන්න තැනින් ඉන්නවා. කලබල වෙන්න එපා.
ඒකට ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ අපි කෙලිම කිව්වා.
We directly told the President that we oppose this. Do not assume that because of the presidential elections coming soon that we are moving around to support the government. Mano Ganesan and opposition leader Sajid Premadasa know me well and there is no need to panic.
අපි ඉන්න තැන හොඳට ඉන්නවා. කලබල වෙන්න එපා. අනිත් එක මේ අපි ආ ඩීල් කරේ නෙවෙයිනේ. ඩීල් දාන්න ආවේ නෑනේ. ජනාධිපතිතුමාලා එක දෙන්න මේක දෙන්න එනිසා අපි සහයෝග දෙන්න කියලා. එහෙම නෙවෙයි. No deal. අපි ඩීල් කරලා අපි ඩීලර් නෙවෙයි ලීඩර්ස් අපි.
இன்னைக்கு இருந்த கலந்துரையாடல்ல
Today's discussion was very productive. Everyone appreciated it. Some suggested necessary amendments. I'm not sure of what was said outside. Some say that line rooms are accepted, yet they do not have the land rights. Therefore, land rights are crucial.
தேவையான அரசாங்க வரப்பிரசாதங்கள் வந்து கிடைக்கும். මේක හොඳයි. හොඳ වැඩපිළිවෙලක්.
This is a good program. Implementing it as a separate village administrative unit makes it easier for the government. Such villages can be organized like others in the country.
වැඩපිළිවෙල කරගන්න පුළුවන්.
Do you see now what happens when an opposition MP supports the government positively? No one can separate me from the CWC.
200 years have passed since people from India arrived in Sri Lanka for plantation work. Yet, many of them still face hardship living in outdated line houses. These line houses haven't been renovated in a long time and are unsafe for habitation. Despite efforts to provide these communities with proper housing, some workers continue to reside in these deteriorating line houses.
The handing over of freehold land deeds to residents of Colombo under Ramthara Urume program began today. The event was chaired by President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Freehold land deeds were distributed under the Ramthara Urume program that was proposed under the 2024 budget. The inauguration of this program was held this afternoon at Sugatadasa Indoor Stadium.
It is not about thanking me, but it is this government that should thank you. We took over the government in a difficult period and we don't need to remind you of the suffering we had to undergo, because we are not an ordinary government. We are not a government that was formed by one party. It was amidst much chaos and crisis where some people were fleeing. We got together from different parties and formed this government. There was no government like this in Sri Lanka before. Some say we are a pickle. Even if we are a pickle, we are a good pickle. We are a pickle that the people like to eat. We have come a certain distance. We must fix the economy of the country and move forward. By the end of this, we should have given the title to lands, houses and apartments to over 2 million people. This is a record. We have a broad plan to make the Western Province one city.
අපේ විශාල සැලැස්මක් තියෙනවා මේ බස්නාහිර පළාතේ නගරයක් එක නගරයක් හැටියට කරන්න.
Health Minister Ramesh Pathirana opines that the presidential poll will take place in early October. He made this comment during a meeting with former TNA parliamentarian E. Saravana Bhavan.
Presidential election will be held most probably by the first week of October, if not before that, 5th of October before that. It's the presidential election. I also have a question. Whom would you vote for this time? It's up to the Tamil people to decide what they want to do. But I think you should consider this as a country. I personally believe that, the Tamil, Muslim, Sinhalese communities all three live in the country. They are an integral part of the social, ethnic and cultural fabric of the country. Unfortunately, we had to go through this civil war for 30 long years. But otherwise, we are one nation. So we are Sri Lankan nation. So despite the fact that there are discussions about fielding an independent Tamil candidate, on the long run, be that as it may, but on the long run, people have to work together to ensure that we build a better future for the people of the country. And you are going to live in this country, and we are also going to live in this country. So it's economically we have to ensure that we work together and create a sustainable future for our next generations. So fielding a candidate or not is not a very important question when you look at the future of the country. So we have to work together. So TNA, will they support President Wickremesinghe? TNA?
What is it? I think still Central Committee has not decided. We met 3 times. So they said they had to speak to all 3
committees.
All 3, those who are going to contest.
Okay. But it's okay.
There's still time now, so they want to speak and get some kind of confirmation as regards, as far as the devolution or the 13th amendment, whether it is fully going to be implemented or whether partially going to be implemented. Because I think Anura said, hear something. That area he said something. He said, okay, we are fully. But then he was campaigning in Nugegoda or somewhere. He said they will not give
full implementation.
No land powers, police powers, and community police or something like that. So there's a confusion. But Sajid said commonly 13th amendment.
13 plus.
Yes. I think
President Wickremesinghe historically has been very sympathetic towards the Tamil people, and also we try his level best to do whatever possible from his side. But up to what extent he also can go is another question. But the existing structure wouldn't be derailed.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa attended several welfare events in the Polonnaro district today. The Aralaganwila Velayaya Primary School in Dimulagala was gifted a smart classroom under the 326th phase of the Sakala program this morning.
The Supreme Law or the Constitution of Sri Lanka says that certain democratic processes need to take place within certain time frames. However, there remains uncertainty about whether or not they will take place. This is because some people put democracy and national requirements aside and focus more on their own well-being and progress. They care more about maintaining their lavish lifestyles. They are ready to sell off, destroy and violate the country, democracy and even the constitution. I do not understand why people are committing such actions and creating such complexities in a country that has gone bankrupt. Why are they playing with the people's minds like this? In the midst of all these complexities, I request the general public not to be fooled by all these lies. No one can violate the supreme law, that is the constitution. No matter how powerful you are, the constitution is supreme.
රටේ උත්තරීතර නීති වන ආණ්ඩු ක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව මොනම ජගතෙකුටවත් උල්ලංඝනය කරන්නට බෑ. කවුරු කොච්චර ප්‍රබල වුණත් බලවත් වුණත් මේ රටේ ආණ්ඩු ක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව උත්තරීතර.
Why didn't opposition leader Sajid Premadasa step forward to take over the government during the people's struggle? MP Dr. Harsha De Silva addressed this issue and provided an explanation for the criticisms.
මැයි මාසේ 10 වෙනි අඟහරුවාදා හැන්දෑවේ 8ට එරාන් වික්‍රමරත්න මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කබේ
On Tuesday, May 10th at 8 p.m, the four of us, MP Eran Vikramaratne, MP Kabir Hashim, MP Ranjit Madhuma Bandara and myself met with then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Our discussion lasted until 10:20 p.m. There's been a lot of talk about this meeting, particularly about Sajid not attending. Some say Sajid hid and made excuses. The truth is, we spoke with President Rajapaksa regarding the transfer of power. We asked for his thoughts on the transition, particularly about the proposal from the Bar Association, which was widely accepted. The proposal called for the immediate abolition of the presidential system within a few weeks. President Rajapaksa, along with MP Ramesh Patirana and Nalaka Gudde, were requested to discuss further on Wednesday. At one point, President Rajapaksa asked if we were suggesting he step down within 2 weeks. We clarified that this was not the case, and what was called for was a system change. Meanwhile, Ranil Wickremesinghe spoke for 15 minutes, during which he emphasized that there was no conditions attached to the proposal. The condition we put were not Sajid Premadas's conditions, but what was demanded by the people.
දැන් අරගලයට කනපැලෙන්න ගහලානේ. දැන් අරගලේනේ වැරදි. මේක ඒගොල්ලෝ ගිහිල්ලා පිටිපස්ස දොරෙන් ඒ වැඩේ කරා.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has submitted a cabinet paper proposing the appointment of a committee to conduct threat assessments on the presidential candidates and former presidents.
The President's media division said that this was in view of the forthcoming presidential election and to ensure that the safety of the candidates.
In view of the forthcoming presidential election, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has submitted a cabinet paper for the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers to ensure the safety of the candidates. This proposal suggests the appointment of a committee to conduct threat assessments and provide necessary security for presidential candidates as well as former presidents. The committee will include the Secretary of the Ministry of Public Security as chair, the Chief of Defence Staff, the Inspector General of Police, the Chief of National Intelligence and the Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police and Elections. Additionally, a Deputy Inspector General of Police will be appointed to oversee all security arrangements. This proposal comes in light of the recent attack on former US President Donald Trump during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, highlighting the pressing need for enhanced security measures. The committee and the designated officer will work closely with the Election Commission to ensure seamless coordination of security arrangements.
The power of the people.
Dhammika Niroshan, a former captain of Sri Lanka under-19 cricket team, was fatally shot and killed last night. According to Sri Lanka police, the murder is suspected to be linked to extortion.
Dhammika Niroshan, commonly known by his nickname Jonty, was the captain of the Sri Lanka under-19 cricket team in 2002. A right-handed batsman and medium-fast bowler, Niroshan was fatally shot last night. The incident occurred between 9:25 and 9:30 p.m. at his residence in Kandamavatha, Ambalangoda. According to reports, 3 masked individuals approached Niroshan's house and carried out the shooting as he was about to leave on his motorcycle to attend a funeral. Police suspect the assailants came from the nearby jungle area.
පුජ්‍යලන් තිදෙනෙකු මා මේ පෙන්නන කැලෑපද ප්‍රදේශයෙන් නිවස ඉදිරිපිටට පැමිණ මේ නිවසේ හිමිකරු යතුරු පැදියකින් ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේ 9:30ට පමණ අවමංගල්‍ය උත්සවයකට සහභාගී වීම සඳහා නිවසෙන් පිටව යාමට සූදානම් වූ අවස්ථාවේදී ඔහුට වෙඩි තබා මෙම ස්ථානයේදීම ඝාතනය කර තිබුණා.
The killers had used a shotgun, shooting Niroshan twice.
මගේ ඉස්සරහා මගේ මහත්තයා ඇවිල්ලා මරලා දැම්මේ. මගේ ඉස්සර තුන්දෙනෙක් තුවක්කු දෙකක් දැක්කා. තව එතන මරණ පරීක්ෂණයෙන් කියන මහත්තයාට කඩු පහරකුත් ගහලා කියලා. උණ්ඩයක් පපුව පසාරු කරන් ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා. මලගේ දඩට යන්න එළියට බහැලා මාත් එක්ක මැදනේ කතා කරගෙන ඉන්නකොට තමයි මහත්තයා ඔය දේ උනේ මේ පැත්තෙන් එක බාල දුවගෙන ඇවිල්ලා තුන්දෙනෙක්.
Police suspect Lokupati orchestrated the shooting of Dhammika Niroshan. Lokupati was also suspected of being involved in the shooting of Club Vasantha alias Surendra Vasantha and others. Authorities believe that an extortion attempt involving 5 million rupees may be the motive behind the attack. There are indications that the suspect, Lokupati, is currently residing in Dubai, and Niroshan had also lived in Dubai previously, having moved abroad due to threats to his life. He had returned to Sri Lanka about a month and a half ago and was reportedly planning to leave the country again. At the time of his death, Dhammika Niroshan was 41 years old and a father of 2.
Investigations are underway to identify the suspects. It has been reported that some individuals were acting against him in connection with the previous shooting in the Ambalangoda area. However, we cannot confirm the exact motive at this time.
Academy of Health Professionals convened a media briefing today and responded to the IGP's recent statements on trade unions.
The Inspector General of Police has said and that trade unions destroy institutions and also that they destroy the society. Can the IGP say that the Sri Lanka Police is the best state institution? I will not criticize the police department or police officers any further as I do not want to disrespect them. And because they are there to ensure our safety and I don't want to be taken away to show any weapons or something like that. But the Inspector General of Police has got his duties mixed up. I request the IGP not to get the underworld and trade unions mixed up.
The Joint Teachers Services Union convened a media briefing today.
All we have to say is this. The government is not ready to solve the issue faced by principals and teachers. The government is not ready to solve the issues of the people who are suffering. This government is not ready to solve the issues in the education and health sectors. The government is preparing to sell off the education and health sectors. We saw this happening in the past. We also need to say that the governments that are waiting to come into power are also planning on selling off the education and health sectors. We cannot wait for the next government to come into power to solve these issues. Therefore, we propose continuous action and continuous struggle.
The Kohuwala flyover, which was constructed using funds from a loan by the Hungarian government, was declared open for the general public today.
The flyover spans 254 meters in length and 9.4 meters in width. The total cost of construction is 3,599 billion rupees. The construction of this flyover began in 2021 as a solution to the massive traffic congestion in the Kohuwala town.
No bridges can be constructed and no roads can be constructed or widened with the tax revenue of the GOSL. The only thing that can be done with the tax revenue of the government of Sri Lanka is the payment or salaries of state sector employees, payment of pensions, Aswesuma and some of the social welfare funds and for interest loans that have already been taken. No matter what the government is in power, no matter who was in power in the past, there is no sufficient revenue to make these recurring expenses. Therefore, all promises made to the people in rural villages are lies. Nothing can be constructed without loans from foreign countries.
Minister of Water Supply Jeevan Thondaman says that a potential reduction in water tariffs is likely to come into effect soon.
The water sector is dependent on various other factors, and we had made a promise earlier that should the electricity tariffs come down, so will the water tariffs. And right now my team is studying the variables, not just on reducing water tariffs based on electricity, but also reducing water tariffs based on the interest rates, which have come down from 26 to 11%, and also the dollar rate, because as many of you are aware, the chemicals that we procure for the water board are imported, and it's based on the dollar. So now since the dollar rate has also come down, we are basically doing a quick study. I think within this week we will know how much we'd be able to reduce the water tariff by. Been able to give about 113,000 connections as of today. And I think another 30,000 connections are in the offering in the coming weeks. So apart from that, we've also managed to turn a loss-making enterprise from 2.8 billion rupee loss to a 6.2 billion rupee profit every month. And with a recurrent expenditure of 4.5 billion, the remaining is going for debt servicing. It's made the water sector sustainable.
India and Oman have deployed maritime assets as part of search and rescue operations after an oil tanker named Prestige Falcon sailing under the Comoros flag capsized off the coast of Oman with 16 crew members on board. The crew includes 13 Indians and 3 Sri Lankans.
The 16-member crew, including 13 Indians and 3 Sri Lankans of a Comoros-flagged oil tanker, went missing after it capsized off coast of Oman on Monday. This comes a day after the sinking was reported. Speaking to Reuters, the Sultanate's Maritime Security Centre said the vessel remained submerged and inverted. It did not confirm whether the vessel had stabilized or oil products were leaking into the sea. The oil tanker was heading to the Yemeni port of Aden and capsized off Oman's major industrial port of Dhaka. The shipping data showed that the vessel is a 117-meter-long oil products tanker built in 2007. Such small tankers are typically used for short coastal voyages. Following this, Omani authorities started a search and rescue operation at the scene in coordination with maritime officials. Indian Navy's warship INS Teg has also been deployed along with maritime surveillance aircraft P-81 along with the Omani vessels and personnel to carry out search and rescue missions after a Comoros flagged vessel with its crew. The port of Dhaka, situated on Oman's southwest coast, is near the Sultanate's significant oil and gas extraction sites. This includes a major oil refinery that is part of Dhaka's extensive industrial zone, the largest economic project in Oman.
The Sri Lankan embassy in Bucharest was officially opened by Foreign Minister Ali Sabri.
Foreign Affairs Minister Ali Sabri officially inaugurated the Sri Lankan embassy in Bucharest along with Foreign Minister of Romania. This embassy will serve over 40,000 Sri Lankans working in Romania. Foreign Affairs Minister Ali Sabri said that he was assured of further opportunities for Sri Lankans there, and Sri Lanka's presence will no doubt serve as an invaluable mechanism to assist them and to further enhance our bilateral relations. This will also be a catalyst in strengthening Sri Lanka's relations with Romania and the southeastern European nations. Foreign Affairs Minister Ali Sabri held talks with Romania's Foreign Minister as Sri Lanka strengthens ties with Romania and Eastern European nations. He said they engaged in fruitful bilateral discussions covering political, economic, labor, education, tourism, reconciliation domains and friendship between the two countries. They also exchanged views on cooperation in the UN, regional and multilateral issues including climate change and reforms to multilateral institutions. They also signed the first program of cooperation in the field of education, science, culture, mass media, youth and sports.
Advocata Institute convened a press briefing in Colombo.
Where are the money for the people? People do not have money and they have to continue with the tax pay money. There are two options. One is either you pay it with taxes. The second one is you change the central bank law and give some more leeway to print money. That will also come as a burden with the inflation. So that's the only two ways that I see, or we have to borrow more money to pay the existing debt, but of course we do not have the access or the option. We are not saying to privatize all the SOEs. I mean, we would be happy, but that's why our worry is, at least if you bring the bill, which doesn't require, it is not controversial, you bring the bill to set up the state-owned holding company, so that not the transactions, of course transaction is to go, that's part one, but at least on the governance front, because it brings the governance structure on appointing a separate holding company, and the holding company has the powers to appoint directors for those respective state enterprises. So then the governance comes. But that's my worry. I'm not saying to do everything, but at least bring the governance at this moment, so then we have the framework which cannot be reversed.
The IMF says that global growth is projected to be in line with April 2024 World Economic Outlook forecast at 3.2% in 2024 and 3.3% in 2025. This was announced during a media briefing in Washington, D.C.
Global growth remains steady at 3.2% this year, unchanged from our April World Economic Outlook, and slightly higher at 3.3% next year. But there have been some notable developments since April. First, growth in major advanced economies is becoming more aligned as output gaps are closing. In the United States, we see increasing signs of cooling. In the euro area, meanwhile, growth is picking up. Asia's emerging market economies remain the main engine for the global economy. Growth in India and China is revised upwards and accounts for almost half of global growth. Yet prospects for the next 5 years remain weak. Growth in China is projected to moderate to 3.3% by 2029, well below its current pace. As in April, global inflation will slow to 5.9% this year from 6.7% last year, broadly on track for a soft landing. But in some advanced economies, especially the United States, progress on disinflation has slowed. Risks remain broadly balanced, but some downside near-term risks have gained in prominence.
Day 39 of the third phase of the LOLC Divisavya program, which is being carried out for the betterment of Sri Lanka's future generation, got underway today.
Under the Divisavya program, exercise books and stationery equipment required for a year are distributed free of charge to government schools with less than 150 students. Today's program was centered around the Monaragala district. Accordingly, school bags and stationery equipment were donated to students of Janasanka Model Junior College, Piyananda Junior College, Vihara Mahadevi Junior College, Idikola Palasa Primary School, Nuge Galyaya Primary School, Debarara Junior College, Viharaya Junior College and Gampangur Junior College. The LOLC Divisavya program continues to forge ahead for the future generation of Sri Lanka.
The 15-member national squad to take part in the Women's T20 Asia Cup 2024 was announced today. Several teams taking part in this edition of the tournament, which will be hosted by Sri Lanka, have already arrived in the country.
The Women's Asia Cup will be hosted entirely at the Rangiri Dambulla International Stadium in Sri Lanka. Accordingly, 15 members have been named for the Sri Lanka women's squad. The team will be led by Chamariyata Pattu. Key figures Vishmi Gunaratna, Harshita Samaravikrama, Hasani Pereira, Kavisha Dilhari, Inoshi Priyadarshani, Nilakshi De Silva are among the 15-member squad. The Sri Lanka women will take on Bangladesh women as their first match of the tournament on Saturday the 20th of July. The Indian, Bangladesh and the Pakistan women's teams have arrived in the island to take part in the tournament. The group stages consisting of 8 teams will take place under 2 groups, namely A and B. The tournament will begin at the Rangiri Dambulla International Stadium on the 19th of July.
And with that, we wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.
Good night.